What's up guys, Brian here with KME Tech Support. We're going to do a video today on how to take a knife from dull, won't cut copy paper, all the way through to a high polish, near mirror polish, laser sharp edge that will slice copy and phone book paper nice and cleanly for you. So the knife I've chosen to use here today for the demo is the Mel Purdue design Benchmade Griptilian, very popular in the EDC knife world. And with knife guys, got a little oil on there. But anyway, we are going to show you that it is not sharp. Got some copy paper here. Just really rips and tears. Won't even start cutting in some places. Not sharp. As you can see. So what we've got is a knife that is not sharp. We're going to take it to high mirror polish. Try to do it in one shot here as part of the video. This knife I've marked with a Sharpie. Not easy to see there with the oil streaks, but there's a line from the tip of the blade all the way to the heel of the blade. And when you can, and you have a knife like this one that has a nice flat spot for the jaws on the KME, you can really line that up, and that's how you want to center it in the clamp to get the best positioning for hitting all the angles and getting a nice edge on there. So when you put a knife in the KME, it's very easy. You want your wing nut, when it's all the way up, just release that about 1.5 revolutions to 2 revolutions, and the back nut here should be backed off all the way even with the bolt. You can then push forward, the clamp will push out, you can open it up or just give it a kick, tilt, and it'll flip for you. And we're going to go ahead and flip this whole thing over, and we want to line that up, as I said, kind of even with the line that I've made right about there. And you want to center it as far as the heel to the tip should be kind of in equal distance from the clamp. We could probably even go just a little bit more out like that as far as towards the tip side. So now when you're ready to clamp the knife, you want to hold it up near the front edge of the jaws. This is especially helpful with knives like full flat grind to center the clamp itself up while tightening. So you can now tighten it with your other thumb there, and when you have it really secure in there, now you can grab it with the other hand, depending on which hand you use the most. Hold it very tightly, use the bottom of the KME to get some leverage and give it that last little snug, and now it's not going anywhere. Nice and tight in there. So the only other adjustments we have are the angle, of course, and the back spring here. The back spring is how much tension is going to keep the knife until it turns over, or how much tension it is on the jaws while turning. So if we want to move that forward a little bit, that might help us out here. It's pretty tight already, and it's really for bigger knives, larger knives that have more leverage out on the handle and more weight, and you don't want it much forward past this. We also want to put a drop of lubrication in between here every once in a while for the little detents that stick out, just to keep that lubed up for wear. So we are now pretty much ready to sharpen. We're going to go ahead and mark our edge angle here with a Sharpie. Nobody ever said I passed art class. And we've got our edge angle marked. This will help us find the factory edge. On this example or demo, we're going to do that. If you're lowering the edge or raising the edge, it's all different. But when you match the factory edge, that's going to be the easiest for new users. And you'll find that even though you're trying to match the factory edge, you're still profiling the knife the initial time you sharpen with the KME, because the KME is going to give you the advantage of lining all that up, making it symmetrical, and once it's been profiled once on the KME, when you go back, it's a lot easier. So we have a lot of accessories here. This is the base KME kit, plus the base, which is an accessory, the 50 and the 100 grit stone, and the lapping films in one strop. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the 140 grit, which is what a lot of you guys have out there as your most coarse stone. This is the extra coarse, and we're going to try to find that factory angle. If we had a knife with chips or damage, we might want to go down in grit to the Beast or the extra coarse 100 grit. not a must at all. Now you can use diamond stones dry with water. A lot of guys put a little dish soap, a drop or two per cup in the water, or oil. I kind of prefer oil, and what I like to use is just cheap mineral oil. You can find this at any local pharmacy, and it's very reasonable. It's also food safe, so you don't have to worry about it on your knives. And I find that it helps me keep my diamond stones cleaner for longer. But like I said, totally a preference choice there. But so we are going to put just a little bit, a few drops of here on the oil. You don't want so much that it's slopping around. If you have oil dripping off of your stones or dripping off of the blade on your knife you're sharpening, you're using too much. So you only need so much. And we've got our Sharpie edge marked here. The KME edge or angle guide is set around 22, 21, and that's really just a guide. It's a guide. It's relevant to how far does the knife stick out from the clamp, along with other things, blade thickness. And so with this knife, we're going to start around there and just see where we are. We've got our edge marked, and see if we need to go up or down at all. Now, I prefer to use my KME in hand. A lot of guys like to use the base, and we're not using any pressure there. It looks like we're hitting pretty cleanly, but maybe just a little bit that we need to raise. So we're going to raise the angle just a touch because we're knocking Sharpie off of the shoulder, but there's a little bit towards the apex we're not hitting. So we're going to move it up to, say, 23, and like I say, just a guide, and see what we're doing there. From heel to tip, it looks pretty good. Still a little bit of Sharpie left at the heel, still a little bit at the tip. These are typical with sharpening new knives for the first time. A knife from the factory like Benchmade might be very sharp, but it's very unlikely that a guy sitting at a bench grinder is going to get nice, even, symmetrical lines. So the other side has full Sharpie here. Let's just see what's happening. And we're removing pretty much most of the Sharpie, so this is a pretty good angle for us. We're going to stick with that. We shouldn't need to use the Sharpie again because of all of our diamond stones being the same thickness, as well as our lapping films and the one strop I'm going to use. All are the same thickness. If there's a slight difference from, say, the 50 grit Beast to the 1500 grit, it's so minute that it doesn't matter because we're cutting with all of these stones. So if one is slightly thicker than the other when you're using an angle cube or a similar device or calipers to measure them, it doesn't really matter because we're cutting with that tool. So like I say, I like to use my KME in hand, and we're going to do some scrubbing stuff at this point and just try to get all that Sharpie off there and find our burr. We know we're hitting generally most of the edge on both sides, so now we're just going to look for a burr and do some scrubbing work here. We're not actually sharpening as much as we're just trying to find that burr on both sides of the edge for step one. Then we'll worry about sharpening as we progress through. So on this particular knife, you can see, hopefully, that we've removed the Sharpie from the tip all the way back. There is still some Sharpie there at the heel. So that is a part where the grinder at the factory made that angle a little different than the rest of the knife, so we're going to have to wait while we sharpen through to adjust for that. As we flip it, we'll be removing steel from the other side at the same time, so we still want to keep things symmetrical by flipping once in a while, but we're just going to do those scrubbing motions. We want to make sure this side also has the Sharpie removed from the tip to the heel, and then we're going to look for our burr once we know we have all our Sharpie. The Sharpie won't lie to you, and the burr is super important. Whether you're a beginner or a new guy, or no matter what system you're using or freehanding, you want to find the burr on your coarsest grit, and then the rest of the stones we want to almost avoid the burr. Even though there will theoretically be a burr, we're going to try to avoid it. So same thing here, we've got a little tiny bit at the tip. I don't know if you can see it there with some Sharpie, and then we've got a little bit at the heel there where they've ground it differently than the rest of the knife. With the tip, a lot of guys have questions about that and problems. You want the stone to disappear over the tip. When I sharpen in my hand, you can actually turn it over and see that you're getting about halfway. You don't want to go so far that your stone rolls over and you round your tip, but you definitely want it out over the tip to make sure that you cover that area. and the stone is only riding on the tip and the heel a little bit as you sharpen. You're only getting a tiny portion of the stone, where in the middle here, you're getting the whole portion of the stone. You're getting a whole flat of the stone. Anytime you're on a angle like a belly or the curve in the edge, you're going to note that only part of the stone also rides then as well. So at this point, we're not worried about lining up scratches. We're just worried about getting everything nice and even. Okay, we've got pretty much most of this side done. We're not even going to worry about feeling for a burr until we have all that Sharpie gone, though, from both sides. The Sharpie won't lie to you. Angle finders are great, and once you figure out how to use them correctly and you eliminate all the variables, they can be an advantage to some guys. And some guys definitely want to know what their angle is exactly, regardless of what the reference might say on the KME or any other system. So, but it's not necessary at all. As you see here, we're just using the Sharpie. We can trust our eye and know when we've gotten the whole edge. We do want to keep flipping, as I said, to keep things symmetrical and even. And we're working on the tip to the heel and everything in between. If you can see here, just a tiny portion left of Sharpie there. Hope you can see that. Right at the heel. And that is due to the uneven factory edge grind. Now, if this was going to take a whole long time, and I see that heel's not changing, I could do two things. I could raise the angle a little bit and try to hit it, and then I would have to, grind the rest of the edge down to that angle or up to that angle to get things symmetrical, or I could go down and grit, which is probably what I would do if I felt like this was going to take too long. When in doubt, go lower and grit. Alright, so it looks like we've removed all the Sharpie from this side. Let's go ahead and check for the burr. If you use your finger, you'll feel just like a little hook sticking out from the end of the steel where the steel is uneven and has a little bit warped over like that. That is your burr. If you have trouble feeling it with your fingers, another thing you can do is take a cloth like this one that comes with the KME, or a microfiber cloth from the dollar store that you see on the table here, and when you run that along that edge, you can feel it pulling. And if you have your finger under there, you can feel it all along the whole length of the edge, right out to the tip. So we know on this side we have a nice burr. Try to wipe that oil off there, or wipe that lint off there, that is. And go ahead and continue on the other side, see if we can get a full burr on this side. And then we're ready to finish step one right before we move on to step two. Alright, so all of the Sharpie is gone on this side as well. We're going to try to feel here from every bit of the edge from the back to the tip. And we feel like we have a burr the whole way. Now we want to do, what we want to do is line up the scratch pattern before we move on to the next stone. So what we're going to do is do some end of the edge strokes like this. And theoretically this removes more burr than away from the edge strokes. So while we can't eliminate the burr, because we are obviously using stones and sharpening still, we want to minimize the burr. But what we're really doing here is lining up the scratch pattern to prepare this knife for the next stone, the next progression. Another quick tip for those that don't want to flip the knife nonstop or take the stone out of the carrier, if you get your stone out of your way and you flip the handle side down, you can just push on this wing nut and push forward a little bit and flip the knife. And that's very convenient for people that want to save a little time. Now you can do some counting here. Some guys like to do like 7, 5, 3, and then 1 strokes. As long as you do the same amount of time and you feel like you've lined your burr up real nicely or lined your scratch pattern up real nicely, that's the main thing we're looking for. So you can actually see when you look with the naked eye as the scratch pattern changes from stone to stone. And you just don't want a bunch of crisscrossing stuff. You want to end with these nice light pressure strokes and just line things up. All right, so we should be ready for the next stone. This is a good example of a stone that is partially dirty. And if you put that away, that steel will really lay down in there and eventually get pretty dirty. So what we do is, a quick tip is to use some oil, and you want to use a little bit more than if you were sharpening. And you just kind of spread that oil around on that stone, and all that steel, all those particles start lifting up, and you can literally wipe them right off. You can see them on my fingers there. You can use a cloth, and boom, you're back to a 90% clean stone, minus a little bit of fuzz and lint from the cloth. So we've used our 140. We didn't have to go back to the 100 or the 50. That's why this is our stone that comes with the basic kit, because it is a very fast cutting stone, and it does wonders. If you do have, like I said, chip removal, or you want to lower factory angles from 25 to 17 or whatever, you're going to want to get those stones. But the 140 is great for a touch-up like this one, where the knife is just has some rolls and it's kind of dull from opening packages and whatnot, but it's not chips and dings. So we have another stone here. We're going to start with some oil. Like I said, not that much, just enough. You don't want it dripping off of the stone. You don't want it dripping around on your knife. If there's too much, just wipe it off. Don't need to use our Sharpie anymore past this point, and we don't want to find a burr again. A lot of guys make the mistake of looking for a burr on every stone. We actually want to avoid the burr at this point and from here on out, because when you take a piece of steel, like imagine aluminum foil, and you fold it over back and forth again, or a fork or a spoon even, you fold it back and forth enough, it breaks off. So at this point, we want to try to refine that burr and keep it as small as possible. We're going to do some scrubbing patterns, and then we're going to do some of the end of the edge strokes just to get rid of the scrubbing motions that we've done here. But right now we're just going to worry about getting the 150 grit or the 140 grit scratch pattern off of there. So the scrubbing pattern is fine. Some people like to do little circles like this. That's fine too. Whatever you're comfortable with. If you want to do strictly away from the edge strokes all the time, that's fine. Your scratch pattern will remain lined up. But if you're able to do the scrubbing or the circles, you'll get a little bit faster progression. So at this point, we're just worried about getting rid of those scratches from that 140, lining them all up for this stone. Couple times on each side, couple swipes that is on each side. That ought to be enough. Now we can start doing our end of the edge light strokes. Start with moderate pressure and finish with very light pressure. Make sure you start at the heel and get all the way to the tip. You can start at the tip and go back to the heel. It doesn't really matter as long as they're end of the edge and very light strokes, very light pressure. Everything goes back to step one too, guys. You want to get step one correct. If you don't have a burr, if you have 1/8 of an inch at the beginning or the back that's uneven than the rest, you still want to wait until you get it all perfect before you move on. When it takes too long, you need something more coarse, not more fine. All right, so we've done a few end of the edge strokes both sides. We're going to do really light pressure now both times, just letting the weight of the stone almost do all the work. These diamonds will really last you a long time with the right amount of pressure. And one more time on the other side. All right, we're ready to move on. I'm not going to go through the stone cleaning again. I'll do that later. Just give them a quick wipe and worry about it after this. When you have nice dry stones and they don't have oil on them, you can use a pencil eraser, and that'll also clean them really well if you use water or if you use your stones dry. So now we're going to go to the 600 grit, and I probably should have mentioned this on stone one, but I like to hold my stone in the clamp, make sure it looks even in there, and then hold it with these two fingers as I tighten it so that I know it's not cockeyed one way or another. Add some oil. Spread it around. Again, no need for dripping. We're good to go. Now again, same thing, we're going to remove all the scratches from the 300 grit. We're going to do some scrubbing. You can make circles, do whatever you want before we move on. As you move through the diamonds, it gets more pleasurable and pleasurable as far as your sharpening. Just the sound of it, you know, when you're using a lower grit like the 50 grit Beast, for example, it sounds like gravel compared to, say, the 1500. The finer and finer we get here too, the less we have to worry about doing a lot of scrubbing. We're just refining the scratch pattern. So maybe one time on each side like that, we've removed quite a bit of steel. We're going to go ahead and do some light into the edge strokes now and get back into the lining those scratches up before we move on. All the way from the heel to the tip. Lining everything up. Just getting ready for the next stone. Now when we move to the next stone, the 1500, we'll start seeing what we could call the beginnings of a mirror. The 1500 leaves a really nice fine toothy finish, and we'll go ahead and maybe do some copybook paper right at that point just to show you that with any of the kits you can have a really nice sharp utility edge. The mirror polishing and all that stuff is really just for the fun of it. It's really not necessary unless you're going to be shaving your face or your head with your knife. But lots of us like to go there and see just how crazy we can get with it, myself included. So more than toothy edges, I do usually put a high polish on my edges. And of course it's fun to show that stuff off on Facebook groups and Instagram and other social media outlets. But like I said, the 1500 is really going to give you a stupid sharp edge that'll slice phone book paper cleanly, copy paper cleanly, and be really laser sharp for most guys. I mean, showing that off to most non-knife people, they would be very impressed with your work. Usually recommend to new guys, don't waste any of your money on lapping films or strops or any of that stuff. You know, it's all really more something that guys want than they need. Alright, so I'm finishing with some really light strokes and pressure there, and we should be ready to move on. Again, the stone is pretty loaded, but we're just going to wipe it. Gets a lot of it off there. Move on. Go to the 1500. Get some oil on our 1500 here. Don't need much. Again, same thing, we're going to start with our scrubbing. Just get everything removed from the last grit, and then we'll line up all our scratches from this grit. Normally when I do this, if I haven't said this already, I would be wearing a headlight, and you can see the grit change when you move from stone to stone. You can actually just look at the edge and the way the lines, the scratches line up, and you can tell what's happening. And the finer and finer and get kind of the less and less we need to do this. You could spend a lot of time here, and it really wouldn't give you much better results than going pretty quickly through the rest of the stones. It's all about step one. So we're going to do some end of the edge strokes, line all those scratches up. Very light pressure. This is D2 steel, by the way, if I didn't mention that. D2 is a great tool steel, takes a high polish pretty well, and Benchmade does a good job with it. All right, maybe one more, just real light over here. Super light. All right. All right, folks, so I've never been very good at cutting copy paper while the knife is in the clamp, so I just wanted to show you so that you knew for sure we are copy paper sharp right off the 1500 stone. It is definitely a toothy edge, but plenty more than most people need. That'll slice your mail open nice and cleanly, and it's going to give you great cutting action for tomatoes, food prep, just about anything you need. Everything else we're going to show here today is pretty much just something you want, not necessarily need. So, whoops, let's go ahead and flip this knife over so we can see the mark I made with the Sharpie. This is going to show us how repeatable we can get with the KME. Now, all I'm doing is visually lining this up the same way we had it before and going by memory. What I'll do is when I'm doing a knife in the KME for the first time or maybe the second time, I'll go ahead and take a picture of it in my phone, and that way I have it saved as far as where it is in the clamp, whether the reference lines are being used, or whether I've made the Sharpie mark from the heel to the tip. In this case, since we have switched the knife out of the clamp, we're going to go ahead and mark the edge with a Sharpie again, just to make sure that we're still hitting the full apex and that our angle hasn't changed that much or anything. Should be good to go, but it's always worth a double check. Takes 2 seconds. So now with the lapping films, these are similar to strops in that you want to work these only away from the edge. You don't want to work them into the edge. It could cut into the tape, especially out near the tip and stuff. But I like to use just a drop or two of oil. They do come with oil when you get the lapping film kit, but I like to rub it on there and then basically rub it almost off. And that'll leave you a real nice surface that's easily cleaned when we get ready to switch again. So we're going to do away from the edge strokes, and we're going to confirm that their Sharpie is going away all over the edge. And we have a nice clean edge. We've removed all the Sharpie again, so that shows you just how repeatable. Just there at the tip I missed a little bit, but shows you how repeatable that is with the KME. We're going to confirm the other side. And again, we're just going to do away from the edge strokes only with the lapping films. We don't want to do into the edge, or we risk tearing them up a little bit. You can go backwards and forwards. You just don't want to go into the edge. So these cut really fast. As you can see, we already have a lot of black coming off of the steel there. It's a diamond lapping film. The lapping films have diamond particles on them, so they definitely cut fast, and they have very consistent grain sizes. So if it says 9 micron, there might be smaller particles than 9, but nothing bigger. And again, this is one of those things you can really overcomplicate if you watch a lot of guys on YouTube and guys on reading online. You can worry about doing it exactly even on both sides, but it's really not necessary for overall sharpness or symmetry or any of the goals that we're after. We can achieve just trying to do basically the same amount of time on each side. If you choose to count strokes, and that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Do 10, 10, 7, 7, 5, 5, 3, 3, 1, 1, or whatever you want. We will end with 1 and 1 and extra light pressure, but what we're doing now is just cleaning that stuff up, getting that scratch pattern to look right, removing the 1500 grit diamond stone toothiness, and getting that polish going. All right, so I think we're ready to move on. I'll show you how fast those cut again. That stone is pretty loaded there, or not stone, but lapping film has a lot of black on it. It comes off nice and fast for you. They work fast. We're going to go ahead and just put a couple drops of oil on there, just like with the diamond stone. Rub it around with your finger and it kind of lifts off of there, and then you can literally just wipe it off with your hand or with a cloth or whatever you want, and it'll come almost 90% clean for you. So we're ready to move on to the 6 micron. Touch of oil. We do send oil with the lapping films, and that's fine. I used it until mine ran out. I actually have no problems using the mineral oil, as I mentioned. It doesn't hurt in between lapping films to go ahead and wipe the blade off, just so you don't want to cross-contaminate. If there would happen to be any diamond particles from the 9 micron size on there, we wouldn't want them to get mixed into the 6. And again, you'll notice I pretty much always use my KME in hand. I don't really use it on the base much, other than when I'm switching stones or doing an angle compensator thickness or anything like that. We can go back and forth here. We just want to go away from the edge. The 6 cuts really fast too. The finer the progression gets here with the lapping films, the less steel you will see coming off on them and being removed. We're not doing much sharpening here. We're just refining those scratches down to a high polish. Very light pressure, no muscle needed whatsoever. And you really can fly through them. You know, as I showed you, the repeatability that you have with the clamping system, with these strops and lapping films and diamonds all being the same size, you can switch around from any of those and be just fine. Alright, so now we're going to just do like 1 and 1 before we move on. Alright, we're just going to keep working with that 6. We're going to do some very light strokes here right at the end before we move on to the 3. Really light, just letting the weight of the stone do the work. A little bit less steel than before, but still enough. We're going to move on to the 3. Put some oil on there, very little. Wipe the blade off. And we're starting to see pretty nice polish there, which I'll get you good shots at the end there of what's happening, but we can see some reflection in it already. Making sure you hit the heel and the tip through every series of passes with these, just like you would with the diamonds. Alright, we'll do like 1 and 1 here now, and we'll be ready to move to the 1 micron. And that's almost no pressure towards the end. We're getting less and less steel being removed from the lapping films because it's finer and finer particles we're removing. That's the 3 micron. We're going to move on to the 1. touch of oil, same thing. Gonna wipe our blade off. These get slipperier and slipperier as they get finer and finer. You feel them just slip right over the stone, slip right over the blade, that is, giving you that extra fine finish that we're looking for. You can think of it kind of like the diamond stones with, we want to do a little bit of, we'll call this scrubbing as we're going faster, and then when we finish, just like with the diamonds, we want to go with the very light pressure, just away from the stone or away from the blade, not into it. Alright, we're going to do 1 and 1, and we're going to move on to the 0.5, half micron. Then we have one 0.1 micron, and I like to finish with a strop. It's not at all necessary, but I feel like it helps a little bit. The 0.1 strop and the 0.1 micron lapping films are the same grit, but I just like the way the strop, even though it's kangaroo leather, will curve over the blade just a touch. It'll have a touch of snug to it to help just get any tiny little bit of remaining burr that's possibly left at this point off of there. Here's the 0.5. Wipe the blade. Touch oil. Hope this camera angle is good for you guys. I was trying to get to where you could see a little bit more detail of what's going on. Alright. Just a couple times on each side like that. Should be no problem at all. Like I said, the goal of this is not the ultimate refined edge, but I want to show you how quickly you can attain a mirror polish. So just one time more on this side, and we are ready to move on. Finer and finer steel particles, smaller and smaller, so very little on this. On the 0.5, we're going to now move to the 0.1, which is equal to 160,000 grit. So this is extremely fine. And then just one more step in our small process here. Like I say, the mirror edge is fun. I do like them myself, not at all necessary. Something to see how far you can go kind of thing. We're going to wipe that blade off again. And away from the edge strokes. Kind of line those scratches up and then finish with the very, very light pressure. We've got nice even bevels now. We've got an extremely sharp knife now. Back from won't cut copy paper to we will be slicing phone book paper. Alright, so now maybe 1 and 1 on each side, and we will move on to the strop, and we will call that good to go. see what the results look like there for you. And you can see in real time, pretty much. I had to cut a couple places there. I had an alarm go off even though I'm in airplane mode, and had a phone call here at the shop. Alright, that's looking pretty good. We're going to move on to the 0.1 micron strop finished with the CBN emulsions, and we will take a look at the results. Again, the strops, the lapping films, and the stones, diamond stones, are all the same thickness, so we don't have to worry about stone compensation or thickness compensation. So we have a very sharp knife now. We have a high polish. Just going to kick it with this strop to finish things off. Strops always go away from the edge only, just like lapping. Make sure you hit the heel, the tip, everything in between. All right, we're going to have a look at that, call that done. What I like to do when I finish a knife is you want to hold the clamp, again, not the knife, while you loosen the wing nut, okay? Then when you grab the knife, push on the back of the KME, it releases right out for you. Now what I like to do at this point is just clean my knife off with a little bit of rubbing alcohol so we can get the Sharpie off there, any of the little bit of oils that might be on the blade left off there, and then we'll take a look at that mirror polished edge with very clean results. Any oil or slurry or any kind of mess on your blade, and you wouldn't see as cleanly what you've done. All right. Let's have a look here at this polished blade. I'm sure you're seeing lots of those reflections. I'm right-handed. This is a little bit awkward here. See all those colors and shine in that edge, and hopefully you can just see it reflecting on its own there, everything around it. Now this could be more refined, of course. I've done this in a pretty quick manner. I think we're going to be under an hour total, or right around there. And that's a quick way to a mirror polish. Pretty affordable for most budgets, for most guys in the knife world. And brought to you by KME. Thanks everybody for watching. Hope this helps you. If you have any KME specific questions, please feel free to get at me, and I'll try to get you the answers. Thanks for watching, guys. Later on. See if this lighting is a little better here. There we go. How about a cut demo real quick? Meant to throw the phone book paper in there. You can tell I haven't made a video in a while, folks. Oh yeah. I've sharpened some knives though in the meantime. That's for sure. Folks, that's as good as you need to have a knife. I don't care. Thanks for watching.